So today I thought I would talk to you a little bit about what happens beyond the classroom and some job opportunities you might find out there that go beyond being a classroom instructor. Now, many people stay in the classroom for 20 years, 30 years, and that's fine. But I also know that people can sometimes get burnt out while they are in the classroom for too long. And so rather than allow yourself to get burnt out, I thought looking beyond and seeing some opportunities out there for you may be helpful as you move through this career in education. So there are so many opportunities at so many different levels. I've had the opportunity to do many different jobs within a district, and there were some that I liked and there were some that I didn't like. And I also know a lot about some of the other positions I didn't have the opportunity to be a part of, but they are there for you. Now, a couple things I want to just go over in the beginning here. First, if you just got your job as a teacher, I wouldn't time travel too much into the future, and I would focus specifically on what you are doing now. You need to get some experience in the classroom as an instructor so that you can be of value in positions outside of the classroom. So if you're just getting started, I know that you may be like, I'm so overwhelmed, I can't even think about anything except my classroom. But as you get into the swing of things, I do encourage you to check out some of the job opportunities beyond your classroom. Now, there are some opportunities you can take advantage of right inside your school building. For example, there are opportunities to become a teacher leader once you have a couple of years under your belt in the classroom. Teacher leader positions usually constitute in leading professional learning communities, being peer teachers to other new teachers, and taking on roles within the school that are part of the leadership team. For example, being on a committee where they're talking about maybe some new discipline policies, or being a part of any of those decisions where the principal brings in the teacher leaders to be a part of that. Whenever you have a chance, definitely get on some committees that interest you. So if there's a new textbook adoption or if there's a new curriculum committee, I highly recommend you put yourself out there, even if you're just going to go and listen, so you can kind of see what happens when decisions are being made, because that's something that you might want to be a part of. So that's one way in which you can, change things up a little bit and advance your experience beyond the classroom. Now, if you're someone who is in special education and you really enjoy the special education department, there are always opportunities for special education coordinator, where you would kind of coordinate all of the IEP meetings and making sure you're reaching out to other teachers so that they're following the IEPs and things like that. So that's another way in which you can kind of expand on your special education teaching abilities. Another amazing opportunity within the school building is to conduct teacher-led professional development. Now, I think this is such an amazing way to hone your leadership skills, to practice talking to your peers in a leadership role, and it helps you to become more of a leader within the building and within the district. So this includes things like if you're a math teacher, maybe you're doing some math PD with some of the other teachers in your department or even in your school. If you are a reading teacher, perhaps you're leading some reading professional development with other content area teachers for like reading strategies or ways they can implement reading into their content area, like in social studies or science and things like that. So if there's ever an opportunity to lead Ph.D, professional development, or some sort of, learning, professional learning, definitely take advantage of that when you are ready. Now, one of my very favorite jobs that I got just about 3 years after being a teacher was going downtown and working in curriculum. If you've been with me for a while, you've probably heard this story before, but when I was 3 years into teaching, there was an opportunity to go downtown to become a curriculum master teacher at the district level. So I essentially left the school and went to work downtown. That's what we call the office downtown, or the district office, and work in the curriculum department to build curriculum, coordinate curriculum, do professional development around that curriculum. We made common assessments for the whole entire district. I worked with a small group of other teachers in different content areas who were part of the curriculum development team. This was such an amazing job, my favorite by far in all of the jobs I had in education, besides the one I have right now, of course. And it just taught me so much about testing, about standards, about reading in the content area, about all of these other things that you don't necessarily see when you're inside of your classroom. So if you're someone who loves lesson plans and you love building curriculum and you love unpacking standards and you love working collaboratively with other people to kind of build robust and interesting curriculum, check out some of those curriculum jobs that come up down at the district office. That's a really great way to not only expand your experience, but it also helps you with your leadership skills. So later, if you want to become an assistant principal, working downtown in curriculum is a very good credential to have if you want to move on to leadership. And that brings me to leadership. Now, you might be a brand new teacher and not thinking about being an assistant principal or a principal or anything like that. But if you're like me, the wheels are always turning and you're looking ahead and you're thinking, where is the upward mobility within this job? And so the next step would be an assistant principal. Now, you have to have experience in the classroom and you have to have good experience in the classroom. You also have to have some experience inside the school with leadership roles, such as what I talked about before, being a teacher leader, leading professional development, maybe being a leader in the PLC, definitely being on some of those committees. Those are all going to be great ways in which you can bolster that resume to become an assistant principal. Now, the assistant principal job is a whole other ballgame than it is being a teacher. However, once you have gotten that experience, it is very rewarding and your scope of impact becomes much larger. So for example, when you are a teacher, you have a pretty big scope of impact. You teach anywhere from 25 students or 15 students if you're in the elementary. Then you move into middle school, you might be teaching anywhere from 80 to 100 students because they switch classes and you have different classes. And then at the high school level, you could be impacting anywhere from 100 to 150 students, every single day. And so those students then go out and they impact people, right? You teach them things, you teach them anything from morals and being, a citizen and how to not give up and those things. And they go out in the world and they have impacts on other people. So your scope kind of reaches a lot of people. But when you become an assistant principal, your scope of impact increases exponentially because now you're working with all the teachers in the school who have that impact on all the students in the school, and those students go out and impact people. So your scope becomes much bigger. And if you're one of those people who thinks, I want to make as much of an impact on society as I can, an assistant principal job might be right for you. Now, you're definitely going to need at least 5 years in the classroom in most districts. Some districts only require 3, but you do need a substantial amount of time. As a teacher, you will also most likely need at least a master's degree in educational leadership or some other certified program in your state. And then, of course, you have to take another series of tests, interviews, and all of that. And it can be very challenging, but it is a great job and a lot of people are really good at it. Now, the downside is I've seen people become assistant principals and say, this is not for me. I'd rather go back to the classroom. But if you're someone who wants to take a chance and do that, check out some of our videos on leadership, check out some of our videos on leadership interviews and things like that. And it may be something you want to consider. When I first started teaching my first year, I didn't think about being an assistant principal. But by year 2, 3, 4, I was thinking I wanted to be an assistant principal, then someday a principal, and then even maybe a superintendent someday. Now, I never made it that far. I actually left education and started my own company. But the skills and the lessons I learned as a teacher, a curriculum specialist, and then later an assistant principal really helped me build this company that I have today. And now I'm helping all of you. So there are so many options beyond just the classroom that you can be exploring as a teacher. And I highly recommend you just kind of entertain some of those ideas. Now, if you're one of those people who are like, I'm going to be in the classroom, that's all I want to do, that's great. I've known many teachers who spent 20, 30 years in the classroom, retired as a classroom teacher, sailed off into the sunset with their pension, and lived out the rest of their years in a nice, comfortable retirement. And that is great. But if you're someone who wants a challenge, you like to change things up a little bit, rather than just giving up and maybe leaving the classroom and leaving the profession altogether, I recommend exploring some of those job opportunities beyond the classroom. Now that brings me to one other thing. Remember, we always want to live one day at a time. So we don't want to time travel too much, right? It's one thing to be ambitious and think beyond, in terms of future and things like that. But we don't want to future trip too much where we are not paying attention to the day's tasks at hand. So definitely stay present in your current job as a classroom teacher, but then maybe explore possibilities beyond that. And then the second thing I would say about that is if you have an interest of going beyond the classroom and becoming a leader, I would let part of your leadership team know. So if you feel close with your principal, or at least in a position where you can talk to your principal, you may want to let your principal know, hey, I'm looking for leadership opportunities, or I'm looking for some other opportunities beyond the classroom, like to get on committees or the textbook adoption committee, things like that. The principal will love that because the principal is always looking for people to fill those roles. Another thing is, I'll give a personal example. I had an assistant principal. When I first started teaching, I really looked up to her. I loved her style. I just loved how she did things. She was very inspiring to me. And when I had an opportunity to go downtown and work as that curriculum master teacher that I mentioned before, she really pushed me to do it and to get out of my comfort zone and to go for that job. She said to me, go for that job. That job is going to open so many doors for you. And she was right. So I would say if you could find somebody on the leadership team or even someone in your department who is a leader, communicate some of these ambitions you might have and put yourself out there and see what happens, and really work towards being a very, very good and effective classroom teacher, and then explore opportunities beyond that. Remember, education is left to the states. So every state is different in how the state deals with, advanced job opportunities, requirements, minimum, qualifications and things like that. So what might work in Florida may not be the same as New Jersey or Texas or whatever. So you're always going to want to look to your district and then your state as to what those requirements are. But there's always an opportunity for growth. There's always an opportunity for upward mobility. And I hope you'll take the time to explore those. Again, thank you so much for being a part of my community, and let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you have an awesome day.